Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to take a stack of sources that, honestly, could not look more different.
Not at all.
We're going from the immediate state of the U.S. labor market all the way to the architectural blueprints of the next AI supercomputer. And our job is to synthesize all of that into one cohesive picture for you.
And that picture really is defined by one word: fragmentation. Because when you put all this information together, you see these three totally distinct timeframes just colliding.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, we're sitting here on January 7th, 2026, and we're tracking the immediate, almost knee-jerk reaction to political proposals.
Right.
Then there's the structural slowdown that's predicted for the year ahead, and at the exact same time, you have the exponential engineering of the deep future being built in parallel. It's a wild mix.
Okay, so let's unpack that. We have to start with the immediate economic pulse, right?
Yeah.
December ADP National Employment Report.
Yeah.
The headline number was pretty modest. The private sector added 41,000 jobs.
Right, which sounds like nothing.
But the real story isn't that number. It's where the jobs went and, maybe more importantly, who was doing the hiring.
Exactly. The chief economist pointed out that the rebound came specifically from small establishments.
The little guys.
The little guys, the ones who are recovering from the job losses they took back in November. Meanwhile, the large employers, they were actually pulling back.
That is fragmentation by firm size right there at the start.
It creates this fascinating schism in the labor market. And if you connect that to the bigger picture of where those jobs are actually showing up by sector, the divide gets even starker.
Okay, so where's the growth?
Well, the service-providing sectors added 44,000 jobs. That actually offset a small loss in goods producing of about 3,000.
And within services?
The big gainers were education and health services. They led the pack with a 39,000 jump.
Wow.
And leisure and hospitality also added 24,000.
So on the flip side, who's getting squeezed here? It feels like the specialized knowledge and sort of traditional corporate sectors are the ones taking the hit.
That's precisely it. We saw some pretty significant losses in the white-collar world. Professional and business services, they shed 29,000 jobs.
That's a big number.
It is. And the information sector lost 12,000. Even manufacturing took a small hit of 5,000.
So the pattern seems to be, that the economy is still adding jobs, but the engine is really tilted toward services and healthcare.
Yes, and not toward those, traditional high-wage tech and business service sectors we used to see driving growth.
And I bet the pay growth data reflects this tension perfectly.
It does. For job stayers, pay growth was just flat, unchanged in December at 4.4% year over year.
Steady, but not exactly setting the world on fire.
Not at all. But if you were willing to jump ship, that's where the action was. Job changers saw their pay growth accelerate up to 6.6%.
So the only reliable way to get a significant raise right now is to move.
It seems so. And even that non-uniformity gets magnified when you look at the people who stayed put, but you break it down by company size.
How so?
If you work for a large firm, say 500 or more employees, your pay growth was 4.8%. Pretty decent.
Okay.
But if you work for one of the smallest firms, 1 to 19 employees, your pay growth was a meager 2.3%.
Wow, that's a huge gap.
Yeah.
It tells you the economic benefit just isn't flowing uniformly, is it?
Not at all. The smallest businesses are clearly the most constrained on wages.
Okay, let's shift gears from labor to another major consumer pain point: housing.
Right.
We saw President Trump announce, via social media of course, that he intends to ban large institutional investors from buying single-family homes.
And the stated goal was to reduce prices and, in his words, restore the American dream.
It felt like political theater, but it had an instant market reaction.
Oh, absolutely. Shares of major players like Blackstone, they declined immediately. The S&P 1500 home building index slid up to 2.3% just on the day of the announcement.
Which just goes to show, regardless of whether a policy actually works, the intent has immediate market weight. But the big question is, will it work? Is this policy effective, or is it just symbolic? And that's where our sources present a massive challenge to the rhetoric.
A huge challenge. If we look at the actual data, and this is from analysis by the American Enterprise Institute, what they call the minimalist view, argues that these large investors, the ones owning over 1,000 homes, they hold a tiny fraction of the market. We're talking just over 2% of all investor-owned homes.
Which is what, of the total housing stock?
About 1% of the total single-family stock.
So even if the policy worked perfectly, you're only carving out a 1% slice. It doesn't solve the core issue, which is supply.
Exactly. And the data gets even more counterintuitive. These same large investors have actually been net sellers for the last 7 consecutive quarters.
So they're getting out, not getting in.
They're not the ones aggressively driving up competition for starter homes right now. The data just doesn't support that narrative.
And yet, we saw the National Association of Mortgage Brokers president endorse this move. He called it a draconian measure, but one made necessary by the crisis.
Right.
That sounds like an admission that the problem is so severe you need a political shock, even if the actual economic impact is, well, negligible. Why would industry leaders back something they know won't fix the root problem?
Because the affordability crisis has become existential for the industry and for voters. Even if it only puts, say, 3% of potential homes on the market as some estimate, it's perceived as taking action.
It's about the signal it sends.
It is. And what's often overlooked, too, is that these large investors are fundamentally changing their business model.
Oh, yeah. What?
They're shifting away from just buying up existing houses. Now they're actively building rental communities from the ground up.
Which, ironically, adds new inventory to the market.
It does, just rental inventory.
So this all begs the question, what are the pragmatic policy alternatives, the ones that could actually address supply and access directly?
Well, industry groups like the Mortgage Bankers Association have proposed less explosive, more targeted solutions.
Like what?
Like reversing the phase out of the HUD First Look program. That's the one that gives owner-occupiers a first shot at buying foreclosed properties before investors can swoop in.
And that would make a difference?
Potentially, yeah. They estimate it could unlock around 100,000 homes. They also suggest things like reducing FHA mortgage insurance premiums or lowering pricing adjustments for middle-income buyers.
So more surgical policy levers that target the actual cost of access, not just the perception of competition.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to another consumer big-ticket purchase. Vehicles. The Cox Automotive forecast for 2026 is projecting a slowdown.
A definite slowdown.
They're expecting new vehicle sales to hit 15.8 million units. That's a 2.4% decrease from 2025.
And it's interesting, retail sales are forecast to fall about 1.5%, but fleet sales are expected to drop much more sharply at over 6%.
The forecast itself is interesting, but Cox's reasoning is why we started with that labor report. They call it the fragmentation thesis.
And it details these 4 key forces that just confirm all the economic divides we've been talking about.
Let's break those 4 down then, because they really seem to define the headwinds for this year. What's the first one?
Bifurcated consumer dynamics. It's a fancy way of saying the wealthy are doing fine and everyone else is struggling.
The two-track economy.
Precisely. High-income households are still benefiting from wealth effects and tax relief, so they're maintaining demand for new vehicles.
Okay.
But lower-income households, they are feeling the full strain of prolonged inflation, high borrowing costs, and that's accelerating what they call trade-down behavior.
Meaning they're being forced into older, cheaper used cars.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second point, which connects right back to those jobs numbers.
The fragmented labor market.
Yes. Cox predicts an emerging jobless expansion. That's a key phrase to remember.
Jobless expansion. So GDP is growing, but jobs aren't.
Right. The growth is driven by productivity gains and investment, which we'll see in the AI section. But job creation is stagnating, especially in those high-wage, white-collar jobs.
And that lack of job confidence makes people hesitant to take on a massive car loan.
Of course. It dampens new sales.
Then you've got the third point. Massive policy uncertainty hitting the whole EV movement.
They call it the policy shifts and the EV shock. The EV market is moving into its next chapter where, widespread government incentives are way less dominant.
And that's happening just as a wave of off-lease EVs is about to hit the used market, right?
Yes, which could depress prices and really complicate new EV sales. And on top of that, you have all the trade policy uncertain tariffs, the USMCA renegotiation. It's a mess.
And the fourth point on this fragmentation thesis.
Yeah?
This brings us right to the frontier of technology.
AI's inflection point.
Okay.
AI investment is what's fueling the GDP growth and retail efficiency. That's the expansion part of the jobless expansion.
But Cox notes a risk.
A big one. All this capital is being diverted away from traditional automotive R&D, building better engines, optimizing supply chains, and it's all going into AI infrastructure instead.
And if that diversion ends up hurting future product quality or innovation?
It becomes a very costly decision for automakers down the line.
Okay, before we dive headfirst into the architecture of that AI future, let's quickly touch on 2 global snapshots that illustrate fragmentation in different ways. First, the media M&A battle.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of strategic fragmentation, a huge conflict over corporate vision and what a company is even worth.
The Warner Bros. Discovery Board unanimously rejected that revised hostile bid from Paramount Skydance.
Right, for $108.4 billion. And instead, they're urging shareholders to stick with the less expensive $82.7 billion deal from Netflix.
And the structure of the offers couldn't be more different, which shows you how deep that disagreement is.
It really is. The Netflix deal is part cash, part stock. It's designed for synergy with their streaming platform.
And the Paramount offer?
All cash. $30 a share. It shows these two fundamentally different views fighting for control. One is valuing long-term platform integration. The other is valuing immediate cash return.
Then we have the KLM flight cancellations. This is immediate operational disruption.
And it's all tied to weather and a really rigid supply chain. KLM canceled hundreds of flights because of winter weather at Schiphol.
I saw 600 flights were canceled just for Wednesday alone.
And the reason for the cascading failure is pure operational fragmentation. Their supply of de-icing fluid ran low because of weather delays from their German supplier.
So they had to go get it themselves.
KLM literally had to scramble and send people to collect the fluid itself in Germany just to keep things running. It's a perfect example of how one single point of failure can seize up major infrastructure.
Wild. Okay, so now we arrive at the architectural foundation of the future. The NVIDIA Rubin platform.
Is the big one.
And to really understand the structural shift that's coming to the economy, you have to get your head around this. This platform is basically the blueprint for what they call the AI factory.
And the core principle behind it is extreme co-design. What that means is they're treating the entire data center, not a single server, as the unit of computation.
That holistic approach has to be what enables these massive efficiency leaps.
It is. Instead of just upgrading one chip, they've engineered 6 new chips that are designed from the ground up to work in perfect concert.
Let's try to make this manageable. Can we group them functionally?
Yes. Let's think of them as 2 groups. The core compute engines, and then the fabric and operating system that connects them all.
Okay, so what are the core compute engines? What do they deliver?
That's the Rubin GPU and the Vera CPU. The Rubin GPU is the raw horsepower, the execution engine.
And what's the key takeaway on its performance?
Instead of getting lost in the billions of transistors, the key number is this. It delivers 50 petaflop PS of inference throughput. That is a 5-fold leap in processing power compared to the prior generation.
A 5-fold leap in the muscle. Okay. What about the brain that's orchestrating all the data?
That's the Vera CPU. It's the data engine. The main thing to know is that it provides up to 2.4 times more memory bandwidth than the previous generation, and it maintains a unified memory space with the GPU. They work together as one.
So those are the engines. Then you have 4 other chips that are basically the nervous system, the fabric that makes this whole thing act like one giant supercomputer.
That's a great way to put it. This is the fabric and OS. You have the NVLink 6 switch, which handles communication inside the rack. It doubles GPU to GPU bandwidth.
And why is that important?
It lets all 72 GPUs in a system operate as a single accelerator. That's absolutely essential for these incredibly complex AI workloads, like what's called mixture of experts, or MOE.
Okay, so that's inside the machine. What connects that single accelerator to the rest of the world?
That's the ConnectX-9 Super NIC and the Spectrum 6 Ethernet switch. The Super NSE is the intelligent endpoint that provides massive external bandwidth, and critically, it controls congestion so that all this bursty AI traffic doesn't crash the system.
And the Spectrum 6 switch.
That just doubles the external fabric bandwidth. It's engineered specifically for those demanding AI traffic patterns.
And finally, there's a specialized processor that runs the factory itself.
Yes, and this is the crucial, often overlooked part. The Bluefield 4 DPU, the data processing unit.
DPU.
Think of it as the specialized operating system processor for the entire AI factory. It offloads all the background tasks, security, storage, orchestration, freeing up the GPUs and CPUs to focus 100% of their power on AI computation.
So if we synthesize all that, all this architectural complexity, what is the revolutionary result for us? How does this change the actual cost of producing intelligence?
The efficiency gains are just stunning, and they really define the industrialization of AI. For training, the new Rubin system lets you train a massive 10 trillion parameter model using about 1/4 the number of GPUs as the prior generation.
1/4. That's a 4x efficiency gain in just the structural cost.
It is. And for reasoning, the real-time complex intelligence that will define agentic AI, what's the gain there?
I'm almost afraid to ask.
For those reasoning-heavy workloads, the results just redefine the economics completely. Rubin delivers up to 10 times higher token factory throughput per megawatt
Per unit of energy.
and up to 10 times lower cost per million tokens compared to the prior generation.
A tenfold cost reduction in producing intelligence?
Yes. And that efficiency isn't just about the chips. It's locked in by system-level features like full confidential computing, hot swappable trays for zero downtime, direct liquid cooling. It's all designed to minimize wasted energy and maximize the intelligence you get per watt.
It's not just a faster chip, it's an integrated industrial system.
Exactly.
So this deep dive has shown us this profound tension across the global economy. We saw the U.S. labor market fragmenting, shedding high-skill, white-collar jobs, while adding lower-wage service positions.
And we saw consumer confidence being undercut by policy chaos and this economic bifurcation, which is slowing down big purchases like cars.
All these structural challenges of the immediate economy, affordability, stagnant employment, are colliding with the exponential scaling of computational power.
That's the fundamental divergence we have to grapple with. While the average consumer is struggling, the computational frontier, as confirmed by this NVIDIA platform, is achieving a 10x cost reduction for reasoning.
So what does this all mean for the long term? Where does this leave us?
Well, we've seen the Cox forecast predicting a jobless expansion that's fueled by investment and productivity gains.
Right.
And we've seen the NVIDIA report confirming these explosive efficiency leaps in AI intelligence production. So here's the question for you to mull over.
Okay.
If our structural economy is defined by slow, fragmented growth in traditional labor sectors, how quickly must our economic structures and societal systems adapt to accommodate computational intelligence that is now scaling exponentially and costing 10 times less to produce? That is the challenge of fragmentation across time.